Hi guys, and welcome to another video. This week we are looking at what happened in Britain after the Romans left. This week's vlog is called After Roman Rule. As if by magic an umbrella appeared. That's right, once again we're up against it with the weather. So to answer the question of what happened after the Romans left Britain, we've come to Birdoswald, a fort on Hadrian's Wall. It's blowing a gale here and I can see the cameras wobbling all over the place, so I better get that onto the rig before we carry on. Hopefully that's a bit more steady now. And it's appropriate that we're here today talking about the end of Roman rule in Britain because, as I foreshadowed last week, this is the final of the regular weekly editions of the Roman Gazette. Don't worry, there will be future editions, but as of next week, we're introducing a more varied range of content aimed at our core demographic. Birdoswald is a pretty amazing fort. We've even got a Springer still in place here on this east gatehouse. There's some great surviving features here. These holes here, I don't know if they're Lewis holes from the construction or whether they're something to do with the gate that was here. And then look at this down here. One of our favourites on the Roman Gazette. It's where the gate would have swung, and it must be spring now. It has passed that date at the 21st or 20th I think it was this year. So as you can see, it's not frozen anymore. Spring is here. Ugh. Hang on, I'm not there yet. The Western Roman Empire was in trouble back at home, and because of that, resources were no longer available for poor old Britannia. Coinage found here at Birdoswald on Hadrian's Wall dates no later than 383, I think it is. I'll check that and correct myself here or there if I've got that wrong. So increasingly in the late 300s and the early 400s, the Romano-Britons were having to deal with everything themselves. Whilst the Romans in Rome were having to deal with invading Germanic tribes, Visigoths, similar problems were happening here in Britain. Angles, Saxons and Jutes were invading the east coast of the country. Picts and Scotti were coming in from the north and the west. Around 409 AD, the Roman officials, the magistrates, were kicked out of the cities of Britain, basically because they were doing such a useless job. A plea went to Rome for help, but no help came. The Romano-Britons were on their own. After over 350 years of Roman civilization in Britain, roads, consumer goods, mass manufacture, cities, forts, protection, all of that was gone. And keeping it simple for a YouTube audience, basically what happened was that a Romano-British existence sort of continued in the west of the country, but very quickly seems to have disappeared in the east. And that's why we've come here to Birdoswald, which is in the west. And things did carry on here. Let's go and find out what. For those of you who can read, I recommend this book here to find out more about what happened in Britain after the Romans left. There we go, Britain After Rome. And that was recommended to me by Allotment Fox, one of our subscribers and the proprietor, if that's the right word, of an excellent channel that I suggest you check out. Up in the top corner of the fort, there are a range of Roman buildings that have been uncovered by excavation. And if we swing round here, you can see these timber posts that the English Heritage have put in place. So the timber posts have been put there by the English Heritage to show where they found timber supports of a very large timber hall that was built within the then crumbling remains of the Roman buildings in the 100 years or so after 410. So life was very much carrying on here. This modern farmhouse was built on the then covered up remains of the Roman fort. So it sits on top of this that we can see here. The wall on the left there is the wall of a basilica, a drill hall that's now under the modern farmhouse. And that's the only one known to have ever been built in a fort in Britain. By the time we get to this period of Roman Britain, in the late 300s and the early 400s, this fort would have been in operation for over 300 years, I think. And the soldiers stationed here are most likely to have been generation after generation of families who lived here at the fort. So it's not beyond the realms of impossibility to imagine that those soldiers who knew nothing but fighting would become some form of local chieftains, warlords, sort of carrying on in a small form the Roman style of life for as long as they could. There are important excavations ongoing here, and they're going to be resumed in the summer when hopefully it won't be so wretchedly windy. And in particular, they're looking at the Vicus, where they reckon there were over 4,000 civilians living here. So when they hit the fan in 410, that's 4,000 people. They're not going to just suddenly disappear, are they? And they're going to need protection. And who better to protect them than highly trained legionnaires based here at the fort? I have been warned by the nice English heritage ladies not to attempt to get across to the what I think would be the southern gate because of bogs, and I'm woefully ill prepared in terms of my footwear, but I can't come here and not go and take a look and enable you to see it, of course, which is basically my job. God knows what that is. Now, if we come up here, what a great indication of how defendable this position was to the south. Remember, maybe Hadrian's Wall is about keeping them in. Let's take a look around this fascinating place with some B-roll exploring the fort at Burdoswald, set to an appropriate musical accompaniment. Okay, the idea was that the book blew to that other place because of the wind. There's a treat for you guys. That's Hadrian's Wall snaking off into the distance behind me. But I do need to have serious words with you guys. I don't know what went on last week. The channel's been doing well. We've been picking up subscribers. Each weekly vlog has been getting more views until last week. Last week's vlog, which actually I think is one of the very best, Suddenly, no one's watching it. After about 4 days, there was 43 views. So guys, I'm going to put a link at the end of this vlog, so you make sure you watch all of this one. Please watch it. One, it's really good and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And two, it looks really bad when people look at the channel and see that no one's bothering with it. Maybe the forthcoming excavations will reveal more about how long they struggled on here, trying to hang on to their Romano-British existence. And who knows, maybe it will even reveal what happened to them in the end. It seems appropriate that we have come here today to the end of Roman Britain. For this, the final in the weekly editions of the Roman Gazette. But don't worry, there will be more. They are just going to be mixed in with more varied content for our core demographic. Over the last 21 weeks, we have seen roads and milestones, forts and fortlets, temples, bridges, and even a penis. And I, for one, have certainly learnt a lot. I thought I knew a lot about Roman Britain, but in the process of filming this series of vlogs, my view of it has fundamentally changed. I knew that the Romans had a big impact, but the extent of it has only really come to me through the process of doing these vlogs. And I've gained a real understanding of what an absolute massive bummer it must have been. Whatever you thought about a foreign occupation, what a bummer it must have been when it all came to an end. Now, if there's one thing that hasn't been so great about the Roman Gazette, it's been the ending. Some of them have been a bit clunky, I will admit. But as this is the final weekly edition, we have the perfect opportunity for a slick and professional fade out. So we're going to close this week with the rescript of Honorus. I think that worked quite well. Oh.